That final click of the heavy oak door wasn't just a sound, it was the lock on a cage. And inside, I had just sold my beautiful, trusting, blind wife. The final click of the heavy oak door echoed in the grand foyer, a sound of absolute finality. It was the sound of a cage locking. For her, or for me, I wasn't sure. I stood there, the silence pressing in, my hand still resting on the cool brass handle. I had just sold my wife, Alara, my beautiful, trusting, blind wife. The thought was so monstrous, so utterly alien, that my mind refused to process it in its entirety. Instead, it broke it down into smaller, more manageable pieces. The transaction was complete. The debt was settled. I was safe. Victor's face had been haunting my dreams for months. A loan shark with knuckles like walnuts and a smile that never reached his dead eyes. I'd borrowed from him to save my failing import business, a stupid, prideful venture that had crumbled into dust, leaving me with nothing but a mountain of debt that grew larger with every sunrise. Victor didn't care about excuses. He cared about payment. He'd made that clear last week when his men had broken 2 of my fingers. A gentle reminder, he'd called it. He'd given me 1 more month. "Bring me the money," he'd snarled, his breath smelling of stale cigars, "or I start taking pieces of you, and when I'm done with you, I'll visit your pretty, helpless wife." That was the line. The threat against Alara. She was my world, the steady, warm center of my chaotic life. We'd been together since high school, before the accident that took her sight. I was the one who had promised to be her eyes, her protector. And I was the one who was about to feed her to the wolves to save my own skin. The idea came to me in a drunken, terrified haze. I'd heard whispers, stories about wealthy, eccentric men who collected things, people. There was a broker, a man who dealt in quiet, discreet arrangements for the ultra-rich. I made the call, my voice a dry croak. The man on the other end was smooth, professional. He asked for details. Her age, her health, her condition. The fact that she was blind actually made her more valuable to this particular client. "Less complicated," the broker had said. The words made my stomach turn. The client was a man named Mr. Sterling. I never met him. The broker handled everything. The price he offered was exactly to the dollar, what I owed Victor. It felt like a deal with the devil, signed and sealed. The hardest part, the part that will forever stain my soul, was telling Alara. I spun a web of lies so intricate, so hopeful that even I almost believed it. I told her I'd found a specialist, a revolutionary doctor, in a private, secluded clinic on the coast. He had a new experimental treatment that could restore her sight. I told her we couldn't afford it, but a mysterious benefactor, an old family friend, had offered to pay for the entire thing on the condition that she stay at his private estate for a month of pre-operative care. Her reaction was pure, unadulterated joy. She cried, clutching my hands, her face illuminated with a hope I hadn't seen in years. "Our life can go back to how it was," she'd whispered, her sightless eyes shining with tears. "We can start over." Every word was a knife in my gut. That morning, I packed her bag with her favorite things, her worn copy of Jane Eyre in Braille, the soft cashmere sweater I gave her for her birthday, the small wooden bird I carved for her when we were teenagers. A man in a black town car came to the house. He was polite, silent. He never looked me in the eye. I kissed Alara goodbye on the doorstep, my lips trembling. "I'll come for you in a month, my love," I lied, "and we'll see the world together." Her smile was the last thing I saw as the car pulled away, taking the only good thing in my life with it. The first week was a blur of relief. I met Victor, handed him a briefcase full of cash, and felt the crushing weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in a year, I could breathe. I slept through the night. But the silence in our small apartment began to grow louder. Her scent of lavender and vanilla was fading. Her indentation on the mattress was gone. I found myself navigating the rooms as if I were the blind one, my hands brushing against the walls, expecting to find her, only to be met with empty air. The relief curdled into a hollow, aching guilt. I started drinking, heavily. The money was gone, my freedom was secured, but I was more of a prisoner than ever, trapped in a cell of my own making. What had I done? Where was she? Was this Mr. Sterling a kind man? A monster? Was she a companion or a servant or something worse? The broker had given me an address for the estate, a formality for my peace of mind, he'd said, while strongly advising me never to use it. By the end of the month, I was a wreck. The guilt was a physical thing, a constant pressure in my chest. I couldn't live like this. I had to know. I had to see her. Just once. I needed to see that she was okay. It was a selfish, desperate need, but it was the only thing keeping me from completely falling apart. I drove for 3 hours, following the address to a remote, wealthy enclave on the coast. The road wound through a dense forest before opening up to a set of colossal iron gates. Sterling Manor. The walls were high, topped with wrought iron spikes. This wasn't a clinic. It was a fortress. My heart hammered against my ribs. I parked down the road and crept along the perimeter, my mind racing with horrific possibilities. I found a spot where a thick, ancient oak tree grew close to the wall. Its branches reached over the top like a gnarled arm. With my heart in my throat, I began to climb. From a thick branch, I could see into the sprawling, manicured gardens. There was a large flagstone patio, a swimming pool shimmering in the afternoon sun, and rose bushes bursting with color. And then I saw her, Alara. She was sitting at a wrought iron table, a glass of iced tea in her hand. My breath caught. She wasn't in a servant's uniform. She was wearing a beautiful, flowing white sundress, her hair styled in a way I'd never seen before, cascading over her shoulders. She looked serene, peaceful. A man sat across from her. He was older, distinguished, with silver hair and a kind face. Mr. Sterling, I presumed. He was reading to her from a book, his voice a low, pleasant murmur. He reached across the table and gently touched her hand. Alara smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that I hadn't seen on her face in years. A wave of something jealousy, rage, relief crashed over me. She was okay. She was better than okay. She looked happy. As I watched, a bitter taste filling my mouth, she tilted her head as if listening to a distant sound. Then slowly, she turned. Her head snapped in my direction, and for a heart-stopping second, her pale, sightless eyes seemed to lock directly onto mine. My blood ran cold. It was impossible. She couldn't see me. I was 50 yards away, half hidden behind a curtain of green leaves. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trying to escape its cage. I ducked down, pressing myself flat against the thick branch, convinced the pounding in my chest was loud enough to be heard across the garden. I held my breath, waiting for shouts, for the sound of guards running across the lawn. But nothing happened. After a minute that stretched into an eternity, I risked another look. She had turned away. She was listening to Mr. Sterling again, a faint smile playing on her lips. It was a coincidence. It had to be. Her hearing was always extraordinarily sharp. She must have heard a squirrel, a bird landing in the branches above me. I was just a ghost, a figment of my own guilty conscience. I stayed in that tree for another 2 hours, a voyeur to the life I had sold. I watched Sterling lead her on a walk through the rose garden. He didn't just guide her. He described the world to her in a way I never had. He'd stop, take her hand, and place it gently on a rosebud. "This one is the color of a sunset, Alara." I heard his voice drift on the breeze, "and it smells of honey and summer rain." She would inhale deeply, a look of pure bliss on her face. He read to her. He played classical music on a small portable speaker. He refilled her glass of iced tea. He treated her not like a possession, but like a treasure. And the sight of it was 1,000 times more painful than if I'd found her locked in a dungeon. He was giving her a better life than I ever could. The realization settled in my gut like a stone. I hadn't just saved myself. I had, in some sick, twisted way, saved her too. Darkness eventually forced me from my perch. I drove back to my empty apartment, the idyllic scene from the garden burned into my memory. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smile, the smile she was giving to another man. The next day, I was back, and the day after that. My surveillance became a pathetic, all-consuming ritual. I'd park down the road, climb the same tree, and watch. I learned their routine. Breakfast on the patio, a walk in the garden, reading in the afternoon, music before dinner. It was a life of quiet, peaceful elegance. It was everything I had promised her and failed to deliver. This wasn't enough. Watching from a distance was driving me insane. I had to know more. I had to understand what this was. Was she his prisoner, gilded and pampered but a captive nonetheless? Or had she truly forgotten me, content in her new life? The question gnawed at me until it was the only thing left. I started forming a desperate, reckless plan. I'd noticed a landscaping company came every Tuesday. Their large white truck would pull up to the service gate, and a team of men would spend the day working on the vast grounds. It was my only way in. I spent the next week in a fever of preparation. I bought a khaki uniform and a pair of worn work boots from a thrift store. I dirtied them up, tore a small hole in the knee. I didn't shave. When Tuesday morning arrived, I parked my car a mile away and walked, my stomach churning with a mixture of terror and adrenaline. I watched as the landscaping truck arrived and the crew got out. I waited, hidden in the woods across the street. As I'd hoped, after the truck was inside, the service gate remained unlocked for a few minutes, while the foreman spoke with a member of the house staff. It was now or never. I pulled a baseball cap low over my eyes, picked up a fallen branch to look like I was clearing debris, and walked through the gate as if I belonged there. No one stopped me. I was just another faceless worker. I kept my head down and made my way around the side of the main house, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. I found a secluded section of hedges and pretended to inspect them, my eyes darting towards the house. I could see them through a set of tall French doors leading to a grand drawing room. Alara was seated on a plush sofa, and Sterling was playing the piano. The melody was soft, melancholic. It was one of her favorites. As he played, I saw a side door to the house prop open. A maid carried a tray out and left the door slightly ajar on her way back in. This was my chance. My body moved before my mind could protest. I dropped the branch, scurried across the flagstones, and slipped through the door into the cool, silent opulence of the house. I was in a long, marble-floored hallway. I could hear the piano more clearly now, just a room or two away. I had to find a place to hide, to listen. I moved on silent feet, my rubber-soled boots making no sound. I tried the first door I came to. It was unlocked. I slipped inside, closing it gently behind me, my back pressed against the wood. My eyes adjusted to the dim light. It was a study. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a heavy mahogany desk, the faint smell of leather and old paper. My gaze fell upon the desk. It was covered in framed photographs. Drawn by an irresistible pull, I crept closer. I saw a photo of Sterling shaking hands with a politician, another of him on a yacht. Then my breath caught in my throat. There, in a silver frame, was a picture of Alara. But it wasn't a recent photo. It was a girl of about 10, with long pigtails and a bright, gap-toothed smile. Standing beside her, his hand on her shoulder, was a much younger Mr. Sterling. My hands started to shake. I looked at the next photo. It was Alara as a teenager, perhaps 16, wearing a graduation gown. Sterling was there again, beaming with pride. My mind was a vortex of confusion. She had never, not once, mentioned this man. Who was he to her? As I reached for another frame, my eyes landed on the largest photo, placed in the center of the desk. My blood turned to ice. It was a wedding portrait. Her parents, on their wedding day. I recognized the photo instantly. She kept a copy on her bedside table. but there was someone else in this version. Standing next to her father, a hand clapped on his shoulder, his best man was Sterling. As this impossible truth washed over me, a floorboard creaked in the hallway just outside. The piano music had stopped. The doorknob began to turn. Panic seized me. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. The heavy brocade curtains seemed like the only option. I dove behind them just as the door swung open, my body rigid, my breath held tight in my lungs. I peeked through a tiny gap in the fabric. It was Mr. Sterling. He walked over to the desk, his movements slow and deliberate. He picked up the wedding photograph, the one that had just shattered my understanding of everything. He ran a thumb over the glass, a look of profound sadness on his face. He didn't seem to notice my intrusion. He placed the photo back down, sighed heavily, and walked out, closing the door softly behind him. I stayed frozen for what felt like an hour, my heart beating a frantic rhythm against my ribs. When I was sure he was gone, I slipped out of the study and retraced my steps, my mind reeling. Sterling wasn't some stranger, some perverse collector. He was family, or something close to it. Why had Alara never mentioned him? Why did he have to buy her from me? The questions churned, making me sick. I stumbled out of the house and back through the service gate, my landscaping disguise forgotten. I didn't stop until I was back in my car, gasping for air like a drowning man. The lies weren't just mine anymore. There was a whole history here I knew nothing about. I didn't go back to the estate. I went home and I waited. The month was up. According to my lie, I was supposed to go and bring her home today. The thought was absurd. Bring her home to what? This empty apartment? The man who sold her? I sat on the sofa, the silence of the room pressing in, and for the first time, I didn't just feel guilt, I felt shame. It was a corrosive, all-consuming feeling. I had broken every promise, betrayed every trust. Around dusk, there was a knock on the door. My first thought was Victor, that he'd somehow found a reason to come back. But the knock was too soft, too hesitant. I opened it and my world tilted on its axis. It was Alara. She was standing there, alone, holding a simple white cane. She was wearing the same sundress from the garden. She looked beautiful, radiant and utterly out of place on my dingy doorstep. Alara, my voice was a choked whisper. "Hello, Mark," she said. Her voice was calm, steady. There was no joy in it, no relief, just a quiet finality. I stood there gaping. How did you get here? Where's Sterling? Arthur brought me, she said, correcting me with a chilling ease. He's waiting in the car. He thought it was best if I spoke to you alone. Arthur. So his name was Arthur Sterling. I stepped back, letting her in. She moved with a newfound confidence, her cane tapping lightly on the floorboards, sweeping the space in front of her. She navigated her way to the sofa and sat down, as if she'd only been gone a day. The experimental treatment, I started, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. There was no treatment, Mark, she cut me off. I've known that for a while. My blood ran cold. What are you talking about? The first week I was there, she began, her sightless eyes fixed on a point just past my shoulder. Arthur read your letters to me. My letters? I didn't write you any letters. No, you didn't, she said, and for the first time a flicker of pain crossed her face. He read me the letters from Victor. The threats, the ones you kept hidden in your desk drawer. He found your broker, Mark. He knew what you were planning before you even told me your story about the clinic. The floor dropped out from under me. He knew? Arthur Sterling was my father's best friend, she said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. My godfather. After my parents died, he wanted to adopt me, but my grandparents refused. He's been watching over me my whole life, from a distance, respecting their wishes. He sent anonymous checks to help with my medical bills after the accident. He paid for the down payment on this apartment. He was the mysterious benefactor all along. Every word was a blow. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. When your debts got out of control, his private investigator informed him. She continued. He knew Victor would come for you and then for me, so he orchestrated the whole thing. He became the anonymous buyer, offering the exact amount of your debt. He knew it was the only way you'd let me go. The only way he could get me away from you, to safety. Safety? From me? The words stung. Yes, Mark, from you, she said, her voice hardening. From the man who looked at his blind wife and saw not a partner, but a bargaining chip, an asset to be liquidated. Did you really think I was that helpless? That I wouldn't feel the terror coming off you in waves for months? Did you think I couldn't hear the lies in your voice when you kissed me goodbye? I had nothing to say. She was right. I'm not angry, she said, and this was the cruelest cut of all. I'm just done. Arthur gave me a choice. I could come back here, to you, or I could stay with him. He's offering me a life, Mark, not just safety. He's enrolling me in university courses for the visually impaired. He's teaching me how to be independent. He's giving me back the world you let me believe was closed to me forever. She stood up, her composure absolute. That day you were in the tree, she said, a faint, sad smile on her lips. I didn't see you. I smelled the cheap whiskey on your clothes drifting on the wind, the same smell that clung to you for the last 6 months of our marriage. She walked to the door. Her hand rested on the knob. Goodbye, Mark. Then she was gone. I stumbled to the window and watched as she walked to a sleek black car waiting at the curb. Arthur Sterling got out, opened the passenger door for her, and helped her inside. He looked up at my window, his expression not of anger or triumph, but of profound pity. As the car pulled away, disappearing into the night, I was left alone in the silent apartment, finally and completely stunned. He hadn't just taken my wife, he had bought my soul for a pittance, and in doing so had shown me just how little it was worth.